Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Today, I've got Glenn Colton from SiriusXM Fantasy and Smart Fantasy joining me next. Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the good folks from DraftKings and from Circa. Jeff Erickson here with my good friend Glenn Colton from Smart Fantasy on SiriusXM Fantasy. You know him from him and Rick Wolf have been partners together in fantasy forever, friends of mine forever. Glenn, thank you so much for coming on today.
It is my pleasure, and I would say friends with Jeff Erickson, accomplished number one, fantasy titles, fantasy Hall of Fame, whatever. That's secondary to being friends with Jeff Erickson.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. But you know what? I go about this every time I have a good friend of mine from the industry on. I love our industry. It's so awesome. It isn't Coke and Pepsi. It really is just this growing cooperative. Even today, in our industry's maturity, I still feel that way. I still feel like, 98% of the people in this industry are awesome. And I don't even know the other 2%. I'm just saying it's still an amazing place to be. We all try to lift each other up.
Totally agree. And that's why the industry has grown from a fringe hobby to this multi-billion-dollar industry where you cannot watch a sporting event without the fantasy stats running on the crawl.
Exactly. I love it. I absolutely love it. You do Smart Fantasy. You do it for baseball, is where you kind of made your mark with the Smart system. Now you do it with football. What are the pillars of Smart football? I know we have it in baseball. I know we know, like, hey, good teams. I know you have your whole thing. What are the main pillars of Smart football?
Okay, so it is the acronym, as you know, and we sort of backed into the acronym, but I think it works. S stands for system. In football, I don't care what your talent level is. If the system isn't designed to feed your talent, the particular offensive coordinator, the system you want to run, then you're not going to be successful. So you got to pick guys in the right system. And your Bengals, until Mike Gesicki, for years and years, you didn't want a tight end on the Bengals because the system didn't, play to their strengths. So that's one. Management is both baseball and football. The M, you really got to manage your draft, have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, and manage your team throughout the year. And that's not just doing fab, but looking, okay, my quarterback has a bye in 4 weeks. I can't wait till the last week to have the backup. I need to manage in advance. A stands for age. In football, age is a huge deal. In baseball, you can get a very productive player at 38, 39. Football age is such a huge issue. R is reserves. It's now called handcuffs, but when we made it up, it was reserves. Get the handcuff. If you drafted Christian McCaffrey this year and didn't have Jordan Mason, well, shame on you. Basically, just plain old shame on you. You got to go up a couple of rounds. You got to get it done to protect your investment.
Even if you don't have Christian McCaffrey, you should have Jordan Mason for that matter too.
But you don't need to jump up 2 or 3 rounds to do it.
Correct.
And then T stands for talent. And you see a lot of times in football that the starter at the beginning of the year is clearly not as talented as the backup. It actually came into existence when Sean Alexander was the backup in Seattle, and he was going in the 12th, 13th round, and all of a sudden he produced first or second round value. We said, let's get the most talented wide receiver, the most talented back on a team, as opposed to who's technically the starter. And that's worked out well.
Yeah, it really has. And systems so matter so much. Like, we're going to talk about the Bears shortly. They just made a change.
They have a system?
Yeah, exactly. They didn't. And, knowing the system and knowing which systems work, knowing the coordinators. I mean, it's not easy. I fell hook, line, and sinker a little bit into Bears hype at a couple of leagues. I have a couple of Caleb Williams shares, and I'm paying the price because knowing that Shane Waldron wasn't going to be successful, knowing that Matt Eberflus wasn't going to be successful, I mean, that probably should have been something I should have known a little bit more.
Yeah, I have very few Bear shares across the board. I mean, do I think DJ Moore is talented? Yeah. Do I think Rome Odunze is talented? Yeah. But it just didn't seem like a system that was going to feed them in the way that the draft capital cost. And do I think that DeAndre Swift is talented? Yeah. Did I think they were going to play to his strengths? Not enough where he was going. So, yeah, I have very few Bears, and that was part of just following the system.
Yeah, there you go. Let's jump right into quarterback talk. Let's just start with Caleb Williams because, they're in the news. They did fire Shane Waldron. Williams has regressed badly after looking like he was turning the corner. The 2 games before the bye week, the Bears were actually really functional. All of a sudden, the last 3 games have been terrible. I mean, culminating in just a disaster. This is not an elite defensive unit, and they were just destroyed.
So I apologize, Jeff. I didn't hear what you just said. Sort of cut out.
Sorry, no worries.
Now I hear you.
Okay. Let's talk Bears. Let's talk about how Caleb Williams has regressed so badly since the bye week. We looked like he was turning the corner. That game in London was amazing. Like, this is the Caleb Williams they drafted. Okay, we're excited. Let's go. Now he just had his worst possible game. What is he kind of hopeless for the rest of this season? What can we make out of this?
I hesitate to say that somebody with the level of talent he has is hopeless, but really he's been dramatically inconsistent. You take a look at the stat line, 6 points, 13 points, 27, 13, 26, 32, 11, 11, 7. That's really inconsistent as you're heading into must-win situation, whether to get into the playoffs or the playoff situation. It's a tough guy to trust. And this week, if you need to win, Caleb's coming off 2 dogs. They have a new offensive coordinator. Green Bay's a top 3rd team against the fantasy quarterback. I think you can do better.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Your long-term dynasty outlook for Caleb Williams, how much has it dimmed?
It hasn't changed at all, candidly. I mean, I think we judge these rookie quarterbacks too fast. Personally, I like to see them not start.
I agree.
Right away. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love. Go back to Dan Marino, go back to Joe Montana. Like, there's so many of these success stories that don't get thrown right into it. Sometimes they succeed, right? John Elway started right away. Troy Aikman started right away. You can do it. CJ Stroud, even, who I'm sure we'll talk about. But largely, you just can't really judge what you see in the first year when they're learning the league. The league is bigger and faster than even the most major college football.
Yeah, agreed. And honestly, we saw it a little bit last year at USC where he struggled once USC started turning south. Their offensive line was problematic. That Notre Dame game, for instance, might have been a harbinger of what was going to happen this year.
Good word.
Thank you. I use one per podcast. I've used it up for this podcast. But I just think I think you're absolutely right. Carson Palmer didn't play it down his rookie year. John Kitna covered for that year. Patrick Mahomes played 1 game. He was awesome in that game, but it's the last game of the season. I do think that can be a good plan. I think we do get spoiled by Stroud and Jaden Daniels this year, where they just come out of the gate roaring like this. Daniels is starting to slow down, by the way.
Yes.
So I think that's worthy of kind of pointing out there. Okay, another quarterback I want to talk about this week, Jared Goff. How do we rank him this week? Coming off 5 interceptions, the 2 previous games, very low volume because they were killing their opponent. They're a huge favorite against Jacksonville, which might mean more of the same in terms of game script, but their secondary is so weak that they might get to that blowout phase because of the passing game. What are you doing, Jared Goff, this week?
There are situations where you might have to start him, but he looked awful on Sunday night. I mean, truly awful on Sunday night. He's got maybe averaging 17 points a game over the last 4 games, something like that, if I'm doing the math quickly right in my head. And I don't like the game script here at all. I think you're going to see Mac Jones, excuse me. Mac Davis, the guy who dropped the hold in the North Dallas 40, because I'm all about Dallas.
Exactly. Well, that's our era. So yes.
Right. I think you can see Mac Jones, and I think you're going to see a situation where you're going to get a lot of Gibbs and a lot of Montgomery. So I don't love Goff at all this week. I really don't.
Yeah. I have him around 10, and it's only because I don't like a lot of other options right behind him. Like, for instance, Kirk Cousins has Denver at Denver. I think that's a pretty sneaky, tough matchup. Jordan Love, I don't know what he's going to do against the Bears. I mean, for all the Bears' woes, their passing defense really isn't one of them. Hail Mary's not included, but I feel like, okay, well, that's kind of tough too. Maybe I should put Russell Wilson ahead of Goff with that sweet matchup against the Baltimore secondary, except such a huge rivalry game. And is Russell Wilson in your circle of trust? Is he a top 12? Is he a starting quarterback for you now?
He's on the fringe, right?
Yeah.
But I do like him this week in a game where they're going to have to put points on the board. So you have the perfect scenario of Baltimore will score. And if you want to score against Baltimore, you have to throw the football. So I kind of like that scenario. And I like the addition of Mike Williams. I think now you have two guys, both who have all kinds of issues in Pickens and Williams. But one thing they can do is go get the ball in traffic.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to really inure to Russell Wilson's benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree with you on that one there. By the way, I agree with Charlene. She's been playing fantasy football redrafts for 20 years. Always will be surprises and injuries. Absolutely. It's definitely true. We get thrown for curveballs all the time. Let's talk about one more quarterback before we move on to running back, CJ Stroud. We talked about him as an example about rookie quarterbacks. Year 2 hasn't been as great. Obviously, losing Nico Collins hurts. Losing Stephon Diggs hurts. He probably gets Collins back. I don't want to trust the Texans until like Collins plays like full practices this week, just because of what happened this last week. But if Collins plays against this Dallas secondary, do we see the first half version of CJ Stroud against the Lions last week, or the second half version? What do we see out of CJ Stroud this week?
I actually don't love the matchup that much, to tell you the truth. Sorry about the city noises here.
No problem.
I think the Cowboy defense is just a different defense with Micah Parsons. And Trayvon Diggs looks like he's back to being Trayvon Diggs. So now you have Diggs playing better. You have Parsons. You add that to DeMar being overshown, who looks great. That defense was not the problem against Philadelphia, right? Mm-hmm. The problem was turning the ball over and giving Philadelphia 20-yard fields.
Yes.
And doing stuff. To me, I don't think that, Stroud, is Nico Collins going to be fully healthy? I don't think so. Will he play? Maybe. So Stroud is not a guy I love, and I'm not looking to pass on a guy who's playing during the week in the hope of waiting for CJ Stroud on Monday night.
I think that's smart. I think that's smart. Again, smart fantasy. There you go. There you go. Let's talk running backs. But before we do that, we're going to share a quick note from our friends over at DraftKings, thanks to the dulcet tones of my friend Nick Whalen.
We're proud to be brought to you by DraftKings Pick 6. So many NFL offerings each week over at Pick 6. Been enjoying playing on the Pick 6 platform each and every week of the NFL season. Think a certain quarterback will throw for more than 300 yards. How about your favorite receiver scoring a touchdown? Check out Pick 6, the newest way to play fantasy football and win cash right now with DraftKings. Here's how it works. Just pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport and choose if they'll have more or less of a given stat. Yards, catches, touchdowns, etc. Lock in those picks and compete against opponents for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use our code ROTOPICK. That's ROTOPICK. Again, ROTOPICK, ROTOPICK. If you're a new Pick 6 customer, play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed. Just use that code ROTOPICK. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-89-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Thank you to DraftKings Pick 6 for their sponsorship. Thanks to Nick Whalen for doing that read, so I don't have to. Appreciate that. Here with Glenn Colton from Smart Fantasy. Catch them Tuesday nights right after us on SiriusXM, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern time on Tuesday nights. He and Kyle Elfrink just do a great job there. Of course. Christian McCaffrey, full workhorse load in his first week back against the Bucs. They've used him like this before, after absences before too, so I shouldn't be totally shocked. I thought they may give him like 2/3 of a workload. No, it was full on. I've got him number 1 this week against Seattle at running back. What say you?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, this was what you saw from Christian McCaffrey last week was the floor. I didn't get into the end zone, and yet he still got over 100 yards total offense and 6 catches. And you had 1 carry, I believe, for Jordan Mason. I always want to say Justin Mason, for a friend from the industry. And 1 carry for Isaac Guerrero. So it's CMC's show, and Seattle bottom third of the league against the fantasy running back. So I'm just fully pushing all in. And if you drafted Christian McCaffrey, you've been waiting all this time, it's just without hesitation.
Yeah, exactly. It's more like, okay, how much is he priced up in DFS? We have to put, any of these like top 5 backs. If you have them, you're using them, obviously. So it's really not it's just noteworthy. I just kind of wanted to bring him up as just noteworthy how the usage and all that.
Oh yeah.
And Jordan Mason was like 3rd in the NFL in rush yards, and now he's just an afterthought again there. So, and I had him in 8 leagues. Now he's going to hang on my roster. I got to find a way to hold on to him, but it gets tough through these bye weeks.
It's true, but I will tell you this. I don't see San Francisco as good as they were in years past. They're not blowing teams out. Teams are staying in the game, which means you're not going to get a game script where they're up 20 and they can put CMC on the bench.
No.
So he's going to play.
It's just more in the event that he possibly gets hurt again. It's more
you have to hold Mason. You find a way.
Yep, that's for sure. Breece Hall looked like he was back for a couple of games after the coaching change, after the coordinator change. It looked like, okay, hey, we're going to be we got the guy that we drafted. That's a couple of weeks, not so much. Now, game script had a lot to do with it in Arizona because Arizona was a wagon, could not get stopped. And so they were in this weird, having Aaron Rodgers throw the ball 40+ times, which I don't think they really want. But in this matchup against Indy, do we get to see more of the Breece Hall that we paid for?
I mean, you have him, you're playing him, but it's sort of hard to trust him, right? I mean, since the week 4 game in Denver, he has 2 games that are over 12.5 points from your, first round pick. Very, very hard to trust him. And, you would have hoped he's going to catch a lot of balls, but he's really not. He's only caught 7 balls over the last 3 weeks. So I'm not playing him in DFS. I'm not jazzed up about him. There's no way you're going to get first round value. And let's call it what it is. S in SMART stands for system, and the Jets don't have one.
No, they sure don't. I thought the offense might have been turning the corner, first couple of games, and then it's just stagnated again. It is really the Pats game was the second Pats game. That was just so disappointing. That's a game like Breece Hall should have eaten in that game. The Jets should have done more than they did in that game, and they just didn't. And I think some of it, this is the whole offense is predicated on Rodgers being a version of Rodgers that just doesn't exist anymore.
No, and look, he doesn't even take responsibility, candidly.
Right. He's like Jerry Jones.
Don't I know it? But look, it's hard you don't know what Jet offense you're going to get. And if the Jets end up playing well or doing well, it's because you get miraculous wide receiver play from Devontae Adams or Garrett Wilson. But how is it possible that you have Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, and you're still not creating running lanes?
Yeah.
The play action stuff should work. Vice versa, when you're throwing on first down, you should be able to run on second down. They just don't have it together at all.
No, they don't. Let's talk about a player that's tougher to rank this week and tougher to decide whether he might be on the edges of a start-sit decision. That's Nick Chubb. Coming off the bye. So far, we've seen a player that looks like he's coming off of a major knee injury. He hasn't been super explosive yet. Doesn't help that the Cleveland offensive line isn't very good, but it hasn't been great so far.
It hasn't been great at all. I mean, they're really not throwing the ball, so you can just basically say it's solely on running, and it really is just completely touchdown dependent. Mm-hmm. And for me, I don't see them running very well against the New Orleans defense on the road. I know that Jameis wants to chuck the rock, so I'm fine rolling with Jameis. I'm fine rolling with, Tillman or Njoku, but Nick Chubb is just a touchdown dependent play at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I turned down a trade offer in a league where I need a running back. But it was like Cortland Sutton for Chubb. It's Cortland Sutton and I just couldn't do the and. It was tough. It was just too much.
I'm not moving Sutton. I mean, they have nobody else to throw the football to. He gets 10, 12 targets a week, and no one else gets more than 2 or 3 on that team. I
think he's wide receiver 16s in PPR leagues this year. I mean, he's sneakily really pretty good. Yes. He's a great player too. There's a reason why Denver paid him. That he's a legitimately really good player, and not just the absence of others. He's just good too. So I like him, and the fact that they trade away Judy just shows what they think about Sutton there too. Speaking of the Broncos, the flavor of the week is Audric Estime. You know, the surprise last week where he got 14 out of the 17 carries. You know, Sean Payton said he's going to basically do it again, and he rarely comments on that, but he kind of gave us his comments were like, yeah, we like what he did. We think he can handle the workload. What do you do? Are you starting him this week?
You know, if I have bye week issues, right? If I have James Conner or Chuba Hubbard or, you know, I guess whoever is going to be the Giants running back, you know, or the Bucks running back of the week. But I am, if I have a bye week problem, but I still don't trust that Audric Estime is going to completely and totally outsnap the combination of Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin. So
yeah,
I'm picking him up because depth is critical, as your listener sort of piped into the chat about surprises keep happening and injuries keep happening, but I'm not blowing the fab budget on him.
Yeah, I'm not either. He is my lead guy, but it's more like, okay, if I get him, great. But I don't want to go down to 0 days or dollar days just because I got him at the same time, especially because the offensive line isn't wonderful in Denver, no matter who gets the carries. Even if we did have a workhorse situation, which we know we're not going to, it's Denver. I think that's.
Did we see a blocking total mishap for Denver? Did we see that? A total scheme mishap?
Maybe.
The end of the game, they couldn't block half the line.
Yeah, good point. I didn't get what you're referring to there. Yes, we might have. I mean, what's serendipity for the Chiefs? I mean, just you need something, get something. It's crazy.
Good things happen to good teams sometimes.
That's true. It is true. Miriam asked, pick up Estime or MVS. I pick up Estime for sure. I think let's just go ahead and talk about this Scantling real quick here.
Sure.
We've seen him have flashes like this before. He's capable of it. It wasn't a total fluke that he can hit on a big play. That's what he does, but it's all or nothing with him.
It is, and you always wonder. He's always been better at getting open than he is at actually pulling it in. But let's take a look at that pass catcher room, right?
Yeah.
MVS, Cedric Wilson, Mason Tipton, who is apparently in witness protection because we didn't see him.
Right.
Jawan Johnson, Taysom Hill, the island of Foster Moreau. Like, who are they throwing to instead of MVS?
Kamara.
Yes, but I mean, even if they throw him to 7 times, like you still got to throw to a wide receiver. So I kind of like MVS this week. It really depends on your team need. What do you need more, wide receiver or running back?
I just feel like, of the Saints pass catchers, I do like him best among all the wide receivers. I mean, we saw guys like come off the street and catch passes last week.
We did.
I thought Mason Tipton was the one I was actually like ranking. I wasn't rostering him, but I had to rank a Saints receiver. I got it wrong. It was Valdez Scantling was the answer. But
me too.
After MVS had the 3 catches for 109 yards in the first half, the 2 touchdowns, he didn't get a single target after that. Very weird game, weird situation there.
It's not like the Saints are a good situation either.
Oh, no. They got the dead cat coaching bounce last week. I don't think that lasts much longer. I think they get, maybe they play hard one more week, but because the Riz is someone that they love, but it just shows how much they hated Dennis Allen, by the way.
Yeah, but they loved him when they were 2-0.
Yeah, true. That might have been the Kubiak that everybody loved externally too.
Fair enough.
But all right, one more running back room question here. Pittsburgh. Najee Harris is gonna play. They say he's gonna practice. He might be limited because of the ankle. Is there, in a scenario that Harris does have a setback, how big are you on Jaylen Warren? What are you doing with these guys against a pretty tough Baltimore run defense?
I'm not interested.
Okay.
You got to throw the football against Baltimore. Not only do you have to battle with the fact that they are much better against the run than against the pass, but now is what's the health question? What's the distribution question? And they just now have more opportunities on the outside. Mike Williams makes a huge difference. I'm not saying he's going to get 8 targets or whatever, but you now have to fear the pass game much more with Williams and Pickens than you did with just Pickens. So this is going to be a Russell Wilson chucking the rock game in my mind.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Mike Williams is going to get more than that one target. That's for sure. I think, and George Pickens, man, oh man, is he unlocked right now? He's fun to watch.
Yep.
The twisting in air touchdown catch was the one that really caught my eyes. Like, this is the guy that they drafted. This is the guy that people were getting excited about in his rookie year. Like that's a special skill.
It is. He just needs to get his head on straight.
Yes.
Right?
We also saw him, the tackling the opponent after the interception. That wasn't the guy that was returning the ball. It was trying to tackle a blocker like a wrestling move. He looked like Superfly Snuka there.
Ooh, that's a pretty good reference. I might be better than the Harbinger.
Thank you. Again, going back to our era there. I did just finish watching the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix. Pretty good stuff, by the way.
Okay, I have to check it out.
Snuka was not a good man, by the way. Just a fun wrestler, but not a good person. That's another whole nother rabbit hole to go down. We're going to talk wide receivers. And it's very interesting ones there. But first, we are going to we're gonna talk. Share you a read here real quick, but I got to get that read right open here. Okay, here we go. From our friends at Circa, we are going to talk about what they have to offer for us because we love Circa. We go to Circa every year. We go in the summer, RotoWire goes, and then I go again for Radio Row. The end of the season's getting closer. You can catch the big game poolside still at Stadium Swim at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. 6 temperature-controlled pools, a massive 143-foot screen, and booming game sound. Plus, you can view the pyrotechnics and visual effects throughout the game. Grab the best seat in the sun with daybeds, poolside boxes, cabanas, and more. Stadium Swim's big game viewing party is February 9th, only at Circa Resort and Casino. Space is going fast. Reserve your spot today at circalasvegas.com. I'm here with my good friend, Glenn Colton from SiriusXM Fantasy, Smart Fantasy. Let's talk wide receivers here.
Yeah.
Because it's been a nightmare at wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb is one of our nightmare fuel guys. How much do you downgrade him given how bad the quarterback room is now?
So given that it's a Monday night game and there will be no sun shining through the absurdly built stadium, I think would be fine.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's a whole nother rant about in New York, they spend $1 billion on a stadium without a roof. They build a roof in Dallas, but they build this like semi see-through sun glare mess. Like, I don't understand. In all seriousness, I was amazed at how bad Cooper Rush was on Sunday. He had been pretty solid. I mean, he had a very good record as a starter. He came in and looked pretty good when he replaced Dak Prescott the week before in Atlanta. So I think he's going to play better. So for me, I'm fine with CeeDee Lamb. They're going to get him the ball. He's going to get his targets. Is he going to be as good as he was with Dak Prescott? Probably not.
No.
But I'm not playing CeeDee Lamb in daily, but you rostered him, you're playing him, and I think you'd be pretty confident that he will give you a solid floor.
Yeah, I got him at 10. It's not like I'm going to bench him, but he's definitely not like, oh, I'm definitely, like I'm starting him over everybody. Like I'm starting George Pickens over him. Not that, your choice really is both. If you have both those guys, I can't imagine having 3 receivers better than that, but it didn't downgrade him. It is frustrating. I don't think he's going to sink to the depths of Tyreek Hill with the panoply of backup quarterbacks that Miami had when Tua was out, but I am nervous. I'm hoping that this is maybe just also is playing Philly rivalry game, first game after the injury. Maybe it'll be a little different with the extra day of practice. But it's just one of those things where it kind of just wrecks what you think you had.
I agree with that, but if you take away the sun glare drop, it's not a bad day. It's not a great day, but it's not a bad day.
Yeah, true. I just love Jerry's response to that.
No, you don't. Nobody does.
No, it's so frustrating. Just take some responsibility.
Please.
Oh, I mean, part of home field advantage. Really? Did it work out that way, Jerry? Really? All right.
Anyways. No, it's stupid is stupid. Let's call it what it is.
It is. Tyreek Hill, mentioned him as alluding to Lamb. He was okay on Monday night. He did get the touchdown, but it was only 4 targets. He did give him 2 runs. He's going to be playing with this wrist thing all season long. This is not something that's just going to go away. he's like a mid guy for me now. I've got 17 this week.
Well, I love the matchup against Las Vegas.
Yeah, I do too.
I think they have to find ways to get him the ball simpler, right? And I think they'll do that. Is he going to be the guy you drafted 3rd or 4th or 5th overall? No. But I think he's sort of similar to CeeDee, that you're going to be 10 to 15 points as a floor and still have that upside. And by the way, you can't trade him right now because you can't trade him low, in my opinion. And you're not playing him in DFS. So there's not a lot of decisions to make. You're nervous, but you're rolling him out there.
Yeah. I think that's right. We got breaking news.
Ooh.
Anthony Richardson is starting again this week ahead of Joe Flacco. This reverses what they said they were going to do earlier, by the way. I think it was on Monday, Shane Steichen said they're going to roll with Flacco. They've changed that though. And I've got this straight from the Colts official site. So you can see that there. Thanks in the heads up in the chat to Matt Carbony there, because that is noteworthy. Josh Downs was next guy on my list to talk about, by the way, too. So I think
next.
Yeah. Man, Downs was the guy. I really thought that he was, I thought he was going to get unlocked a little bit with Flacco. I was so disappointed with the way Flacco played these last 2 games. I thought it would be better than this. I didn't love the decision to switch just because you know what you were getting when you drafted Anthony Richardson. They really didn't see it through that far. But man, oh man, Flacco was just awful. I mean, the game opening pick 6 against the Bills, just awful stuff there.
It was, but I will say, of all the quarterbacks we've talked about, when we talk about a quarterback that will benefit from sitting and learning, Anthony Richardson is number 1 on that list.
Yes.
And to throw him back in against the Jets defense, which is not played like the Jets defense, but it's still a pretty good defensive unit, I think is an enormous mistake. I want no part of Anthony Richardson. I want no part of Josh Downs. It does, in my mind, upgrade Jonathan Taylor.
It does. I agree with you on that. Just because there should be more open lanes, the RPO should work a little bit better. I do think that opens things up for Taylor some. We see it all the time. Mobile quarterbacks help the running backs.
Yeah, no, it does. But I mean, I'm running out and getting the Jets defense right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's, it's not, he's not going to make quite Will Levis-esque mistakes, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, but it's also, he makes bad decisions. And I'm not saying I can do better. That's ridiculous. But what I am saying is he's not ready to play in the NFL yet. Does he have the gifts? Yes. Is he ready to play in the NFL? He's just not.
It just shows it's organization with no plans. No, they're just like going hot zone, where pushing whatever hot button they can here to try to figure things out. It's just a mess.
Yeah, and look, this is where fantasy divulges from reality, right? You could see Anthony Richardson playing bad football, but running for 75 yards and a touchdown, and all of a sudden you get great fantasy stats. That's not how they're going to win this football game.
Yeah. Jim Irsay versus Jerry Jones versus Mike Brown. There's a lot of bad owners in football. I think that's one of the things we have to start with there, and the Colts definitely fit that bill.
No doubt.
All right. Jaxon Smith-Njigba had some questions in the comments about him. Had him on the outline anyhow, because it's coming off a career game, a game where this is what people expected when he was the first receiver drafted last year. He had one other big game earlier this year where he got over 100 yards, but all in all, it's been kind of a disappointing year for JSN. Coming off the bye, DK Metcalf probably is going to be back this week against the Niners. What are you doing with JSN?
I like him, but I think you have to understand that you're running somewhere between 5 and 20 fantasy points, and I can't tell you exactly where it's going to fall. Right. How healthy is DK Metcalf? I do think they're going to have to throw the football, and Geno has been chucking it. So I like JSN, but I think it's one of those situations where if you need a floor, he's not your guy. Yeah. But if you need an upside, he is your guy.
Yeah. And let's face it. I mean, a lot of fantasy teams' wide receiver rooms are horrid right now. Glenn, I have a team. My NFFC team was cruising really good team had Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs, and Dak all go down within 2 weeks.
Oof.
You know, just like
Brutal.
and you lose 3 players at one position. That's especially the tough part. You know, in the NFL, it's the same thing. When teams can usually are built to withstand an injury or two. It's when you lose multiple ones at the same position. Earlier on in the Bengals, remember in the Bengals, and we're not just merely bad defensively, but maybe all-time bad. It's because they lost 4 defensive linemen, 4 interior defensive linemen, all at one point in time. Can't replace that.
No, listen, people say, oh, what happened to the Cowboys defense? What happened? Micah Parsons got hurt. DeMarcus Lawrence got hurt. Deron Bland got hurt. That's three Pro Bowl players who are sitting on the bench.
Yep.
What's the big surprise?
Yeah. Offenses, the Saints, they lost their starting center. They lost their second string center. They're down to their third center. You lose a center in game, and it's just devastating too, by the way. Centers in particular. And anytime you see that happen, if you can do some sort of in-bet game, in-game betting, to try to bet like under on scoring points for that team, try to do so. I live in California. I can't do that. But it's definitely a thing. It absolutely
it is. And sometimes you talk about like system, right?
Yeah.
The Cowboys' big plan this year, taking it back to my Cowboys as you do to your Bengals,
right?
It was to start a center who's actually not been terrible, who had never started a game at center at any level of football, ever. Like what?
Yeah.
And kudos to Cooper Beebe because he's been better than anyone would have thought.
Throwing someone in the deep end, though, man.
Right. He hasn't been Tyler Biadasz, and he certainly is not making anyone forget Travis Frederick.
No. And it just, this is, they don't have their road grading offensive line. They just don't.
Nope.
And it doesn't matter because they don't have a running back behind it there that would benefit from it there.
But besides that.
Yeah. Just the Zeke story is embarrassing. And like 20 organizations, he'd be cut by now.
Here's the thing. I mean, it's a little digression, of course, but here's the thing about Zeke. They're not using Zeke in the way that Zeke can be used, right? He should have been the goal line back. He should have been the 3rd and 1 back, and he should be the guy instead of Hunter Lipke, who is in pass protection. And they're not using him for any of those things. They did in the first week. He got the goal line carry, scored a touchdown against Cleveland. Like, okay, this makes sense, right? But if you're using him on, obvious run plays and you're expecting these big explosive plays, you're not getting that. But on third and one, you're throwing the ball on the flat to the third string tight end. Give the ball to Zeke behind Zach Martin. Like, what's so complicated?
Yeah.
But anyway, digression over.
Yeah. I mean, just the whole story about him no-showing meetings and things like that. Why is he still on the roster even? I don't know, but just it's just not a serious franchise. That's the way.
Not right now. It's not. I'm with you.
We're not serious people. Buffalo Bills. No, we didn't. We already know we're not going to have Keon Coleman day to day on Amari Cooper. Same with Dalton Kincaid. Big, massive, huge game against the Chiefs this week. The Bills are still favored despite all these injuries because the Chiefs have their own share. But is there a pass catcher that you're big on this week? Is it Khalil Shakir? Is there anybody else you want to invest in?
I think if Amari Cooper plays, I'm big on that. Other than that, no.
Yeah.
I think they will throw the ball to the backs. I think you'll see, Cook and Davis get a lot of action. And it's just hard for me to get excited about Mac Hollins, but might I throw a DFS lineup in with him? Yeah, if Cooper doesn't play, it probably will. Yeah,
I can see it. I can definitely see it there. And watch Dalton Kincaid too. Because if he doesn't play, all of a sudden, it's Dawson Knox. Can we trust Dawson Knox? I guess if you're in a deep enough league, you've got Trey McBride on bye this week. I guess that's not a bad pickup.
Yeah, well, Kansas City 31st out of 32 teams against the fantasy type.
Exactly. Don't I know? I remember that was week 2. Gesicki was your canary in the coal mine as far as that goes. That A, he could be useful for the Bengals, and B, that the Chiefs were really giving it up against tight ends. Because
they've continued to.
They shut down everything else. So I guess that's their little tiny Achilles heel, I suppose. We're going to talk tight ends. First, quick note from our friends on the Blue Wire Network. All right. Thank you for that. If you were listening on the podcast, thanks to the Blue Wire Network for being our platform. TJ Hockenson was full go this past week after being kind of on a governor switch in his first game back. Not a surprise he would be used that way, but is he back to being a full-on top 10 tight end for you?
I mean, I think he probably is in part, right? Because the 9 targets, which were great, 8 for 72 is solid. But here's the thing. That offense, Sam Darnold has returned to, wait for it, Sam Darnold.
Yes.
And Aaron Jones banged up, another shocking revelation of the NFL season. So I think they need somebody who is going to be just a solid, guy they can look for that's not Justin Jefferson. I like Addison as a player, but it's not the same sort of like move the ball 5, 7, 8 yards at a time. So I like Hockenson in this offense, but I think you got to play for the same type of thing, 8 for 60, 8 for 65, which by the way, in tight end scoring is a very good week.
Yeah, I would take that in a nanosecond. I would take that. Yeah, absolutely. And then you run some touchdown luck, even better. That's what the tight end play is. It's hope that you get a touchdown or you get the 8 for 60. And if you get both, it's a huge day. Unless you have George Kittle, and you kind of expect that. That's the one guy I'm kind of like, okay, he's good. We know we're good. Just stay healthy. That's all. He's on the injury report this week, but still, I'm rolling with Kittle.
He pretty much always is.
Yeah,
but he gets out there.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does indeed. And it's a division game this week. I love what he usually does against Seattle too. So very high on him. Evan Engram, I was high on him, but Mac Jones just sinks all boats.
Let's go back to calling him Mac David.
Yeah, anything.
No.
I have Engram some leagues. I don't know if I can bench him, but man, I'm hoping for 5 and 40. And 6 and instead of 8 and 60, it's 5 and 40.
Yeah, here's the thing: you like the game script; they're going to be losing badly, and Thomas banged up, Davis banged up. There's at least enough reason to think Ingram's going to get the targets. So again, you're hoping for a 6 for 50, and if you get touchdown luck, well, good for you.
Yeah, exactly. Without Trevor Lawrence, it's just painful. Yeah, Lawrence is out. Just already ruled out for this week again, by the way. So it is definitely Mac Jones time. I don't think we see Lawrence the rest of the way.
You shouldn't, right? It's the same thing. Risking your franchise quarterback. You shouldn't see Daniel Jones. He's not franchise. He just could hurt the franchise. You should see Trey Lance. These are things the team should be doing. But
yeah.
And let Mac Jones play. Maybe you can actually, if he looks great, you can move him a la, Scott Mitchell, Matt Flynn.
Right. There's no development to be had here, too. I mean, they're talking about, they trade away their starting left tackle, and you can argue whether Cam Robinson is good or not, but it's still the guy that was behind Cam Robinson that's now starting there. It's just, it's not like Trevor Lawrence is going to develop in this situation. Just let him fully heal. That's the way I look at it there. Taysom Hill, the scourge of the fantasy industry, actually now fully treated as a tight end in almost every format that I know of. He should have had like an 80-yard touchdown on their first offensive play from scrimmage. There was a downfield hold that got called, and it was a good call. Don't get me wrong, but it was like probably not necessary. It was a huge play that got taken back. He's getting goal line carries. Is he a top 10 tight end now?
Maybe, but again, this is one of those things where you run the risk of getting a goose egg, right? You really do. I mean, how many times has he really had more than 8 points, fantasy points in a game this year? Twice in 10 weeks. Now, obviously he didn't play some weeks. He is injury prone. Cleveland's a pretty good defensive team. I have a hard time trusting Taysom Hill. Now, if I'm going to play in a big GPP, fantasy tournament, yeah, why not? Because he could score. He could get 2 rushing touchdowns and throw a touchdown pass, right? But it's hard to count on him. So I really am not looking to start him as my fantasy tight end in a straight redraft league. Yeah,
I'm the same. There's some leagues where I'm stuck, or it's bye weeks and things like that. It's not just McBride off this week. It's also Cade Otton, who really has kind of boosted his value with all the Bucks injuries. So that's 2 real tight ends that we have to replace this week. So, hey, if you can find Taysom Hill, great. That would be I would love to stop and just slide him in right now as a possible guy. I'd go Taysom Hill over Dawson Knox if our 2 possible sub in for this week.
I like Knox better if Kincaid doesn't play, but I like Hill better than Knox if Kincaid does play.
Fair enough. I think I still prefer Hill, but I get it because of the matchup against the Chiefs. I do get it there. And especially if Mari Cooper doesn't play, then I'm definitely going Knox. So I don't know if Cooper's
That's fair.
Play. I think that's
my gut says he plays, and that's based on no news and no analysis other than this is the in-season Super Bowl.
Especially for the Bills. They've always been up for these KC regular season games. I mean, they've got some serious get over KC issues. So absolutely. I could see that there for sure. Going to be a fun game. What's your prediction in that game?
I think the Bills win the game.
Yeah,
I do. I think that, with the game being, unless I'm making a mistake, the game being in Buffalo.
It is. Yeah.
Vegas has them favored by 2.5. Vegas has been hugely in favor of Kansas City with putting up these big spreads they're not covering, and all of a sudden they've got them a dog. Vegas doesn't get it wrong that often in a row. So right. I feel pretty good about that. I think Josh Allen is playing, top level football. Chiefs find a way, but I'm going with the Bills.
Yeah. I think Bills win regular season and Chiefs win in the playoffs if it comes to that again.
Whoever sees that.
Nah, never. Just nightmare of living as a fan of an AFC team right now. That there's always the red wall that you have to run into there. Glenn, awesome stuff as always. Really enjoyed talking with you. Looking forward to everybody. Make sure you check out their show 10 to midnight Tuesday nights on SiriusXM Fantasy. Also on demand. If you can't stay up late, it's on demand on the SiriusXM app. I hear it's the all new SiriusXM app, Glenn. So
that's what they're telling me.
That's what they're telling me as well. So make sure to check out their show. Key and Kyle Frank do great stuff, and I can't wait to hear you for baseball season as well. Can't wait to see you at Tout Wars in March.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Always. Maybe FSGA in February if you make it out there.
Maybe we'll see about that one there. Trying to maybe cut back one trip, but we'll see about that one there. But
we need to get you back to labor in Florida. That's the key.
I'm an empty nester next year.
That's right.
There's a chance of that happening. We'll see about that. But all right, that's going to wrap up today's show. Big thanks to everybody for tuning in. Great chat there, guys. Thanks for everybody chiming in the chat. And if you didn't catch this live on the StreamYard, thanks for listening to us on the podcast. Either way, please hit that like button there, hit the subscribe button so you know every time our podcast posts. And if you want to check out more from us at RotoWire, rotowire.com/pod, get you a free 2-day trial, a peek behind the paywall. No credit card is required at all whatsoever. We've been doing that free trial for over 20 years, folks. rotowire.com/pod. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Good luck in week 11.